Welcome to the Lonestar Collective podcast. I'm your host this week, Jesse Williams. We're going live with our entire board this week. This is a session update. How's everybody doing?
Good. To clarify, this is not the whole board.
Doing good.
Not the whole board.
Half the board?
Yeah, I was going to say.
We're normally a 2x8, but right now we're a 2x4. That's enough. Close enough for Texas government work.
Oh, yeah. We had a lot of that recently.
Gramps, you've got our agenda set up for this evening. I'm going to let you kick it off.
Well, you know, we know everybody wants to know what happened with the legislative session this go-round. And basically, we could sum that up with one simple word: a whole lot of nothing. There's several reasons for it. Of course, we know, and I'm sure, Austin, you have your input on this as well. We know our normal roadblocks in the Senate side with our lieutenant governor and his position on moving any kind of legislation forward, typically on cannabis. It's not really his bag of tea. But, you know, there were some other things afoot that I think everybody needs to stop, sit back, and realize that were going on in this session. A little bit has to do with how much involvement there was from the public side, and as far as pushing for legislation, in my opinion. I don't know. I'm open to any of y'all's opinion on that line there. But another big one, if anybody's been paying any attention at all to what's been going on with the special session and the bickering that's going back and forth on how to provide property tax relief. If you really want to know why nothing happened on the cannabis front, is because there was priority legislation that didn't move in the regular session. And typically things like cannabis legislation are frivolous in their minds. So that's not going to move until the priority legislation moves. And this session, priority legislation didn't move. So therefore nothing else did either. I mean, I don't know what y'all's feeling is on it, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
I guess a good way of saying it is that popularity for an item to be changed by law does not make it priority in the legislature. So despite the overwhelming popularity of cannabis reform from Texas citizens, is not something that was seen as priority, despite there were things that are obviously more hated to be changed than our item.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, property tax reform is a biggie for everybody in Texas. It's a biggie for me. I mean, my property tax has been going through the roof for the last 15 years, you know. And even if you don't pay property taxes, for those of you who rent, I got news for you. You're paying it through your rent. So when their property tax goes up, your rent goes up. So,
of course,
and
you're paying a large chunk of their property tax. In fact,
you're paying all of it. In reality, you're paying all their bills. I mean, think about it. They have to make a profit, so that means they have to cover their costs and have additional funds left over, right? So you're paying it all, whether you're renting or you own. So it's definitely a subject that's
and you're paying more. You pay more property taxes as a renter because you don't get a homestead exemption. You don't get a disabled veteran or disabled person exemption like you would if you had your own property.
They're also being taxed at a business rate, not a residential rate, which is a different ball of wax altogether. So at any rate, but that's it in a nutshell for those that are stomping their feet and scratching their head and screaming and yelling like I have been. I mean, it's just facts. We're second best when it comes to priority legislation. And so if there's ever priority legislation that you have any input on, sometimes it helps to put your input on that. So maybe that will move and leave room for what we want to get done, right? But at any rate, I mean, and then of course, you know, the other aspect that I said is the involvement. I mean, it was disappointing this year for me. I mean, I gotta think back to the first session that I actually got involved in down in Austin. It was 2019. And I mean, for cannabis advocacy, that was probably the best year in history in the state of Texas, from what I know. And I mean, we had over 400 people show up on lobby day. We had active coalition weekly, doing direct actions. I mean, and we just didn't have as much of that. We tried to pick up the slack as much as we could, but I mean, let's face it, the interest. And I know what some of the reasons why are. I don't know what all of them are, but a lot of them are, people get disheartened. I mean, I've been disheartened. I think everybody on this panel has been disheartened at some point or another since you've been involved in this process. I mean, let's be honest. How about you?
Yeah, real disappointed with the lack of showing this time. I'm with you. 2019 and maybe even 17 or whatever, we have some really good showings. And I know I've said it before, but there are some leaders and the leaders in the cannabis community that didn't show up, didn't post, didn't inform anybody, didn't just work completely absent this session. And I don't understand why, because I'm with you, Chris. I fully believe that if we show up in numbers, it would become a priority, right? Either just to give us what we want and shut us up, get us out of the way, or, to shut us down. I don't know. Either way, it seems like we would get some attention, but being there week in, week out, it was really surprising that it was us. It was us there,
Well, we were trying to pick up the slack, and I want to point out. I'll let you go, Austin, but I want to point out first that I think there's a lot of reasons why the coalition was probably not as prevalent as in the past, because a lot of those groups kind of fell apart and fell away with the whole COVID pandemic and everything else, and that's what we got to try to do is bring all of that back together. I think that's kind of what you were going to say, Austin. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to make that one point that there are reasons why. It's not just like people gave up, I don't think.
First off, I want to make mention, Lauren, I noticed you're wearing your Freedom Act Lubbock shirt, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm also
All right.
I'm also wearing mine. I have differing opinions. I think that there were a lot of effective strategies that were working behind the scenes that not a lot of people are privy to, that not a lot of people know about. There are actually a lot of inner workings that are very, very complex at a lobbying level. If you're privy to being at the Capitol very often, you do see people and you meet people and you learn about a lot of people. And so that there is a tremendous amount of activity, especially when it came to HB 1805, Representative Click's bill. I think that's the one that all of us are most shocked about that didn't pass through, because everything that, it was supposed, all of the things that had happened historically before that, usually with Click's bill and regarding the lieutenant governor, is always somehow made its way through. Unfortunately, that didn't even make it through. And so, I know there's a lot of harsh negativity, and what I like to encourage people is that to understand is that, prohibition in Texas has existed for a century plus now. And that this has been a long, complex system that is drawn out for generations, and that this was never going to, anybody that's gotten involved, if after one legislative session, you already automatically know, this is going to take a really long time. And a lot of people are going to have to really get their hands dirty to make it happen. And I want to give my appreciation to all the other organizations that were fighting that, other people may not mention, but there were a lot of people, there were a lot of organizations that really truly were fighting that don't get the credit they deserve. And so they know who they are.
I was a little bitter.
There was some
there were a lot of key players. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to name people or anything, but everybody who was active at the legislature, they know who they are, and they really tried as hard as they could.
Absolutely.
We all know those of us that are involved. It's it's a very tough process.
I just want
And
to clarify that I'm talking about where lack of involvement is that by lack of involvement, I mean by the people, by
of
the
course,
public.
yes,
That's what I'm
agree,
talking about. Not
agree.
not organizations and people in organizations that didn't do their part. I'm talking about people that didn't get involved. Lobby day, I know my count was not even close to 100 people this year, and that's
Well,
just that's a big drop
also,
off.
I
That's
will,
a big drop off.
I'll also say COVID did change the game a little bit.
Absolutely,
We
absolutely.
we talked, 2019 was a big year, and then obviously the pandemic really changed the game. And so this is really the second legislative session coming out of the pandemic. COVID is kind of really a part of life these days.
Absolutely.
So I think that the important thing to note here is that there are people in the community, us, allies that, other organizations that we work with, other people that we work with on personal relationships. A lot of national attention is on Texas because it's really the last big market to fall. And I'll continue to say it as I've said it for years and years, that there's global implications for having cannabis reform in Texas. And so, we just keep prodding along. Those of us who know how the legislative process works and how things change, how historic things change, they don't change overnight, and they're not going to change. They may not change even in 2025. I mean, I don't want to shatter anybody's dreams, but that's just something that's a scenario that you have to be prepared for and understand that things in Texas move very slow. And the fact that we're every session now getting like multiple cannabis bills with the near supermajority or supermajority, depending on what year and what bill, into the Senate. And we are, progressively in a trajectory where we are getting legislation further and further along. And we have so many more allies than we've ever had in the House.
That's why I love
Senate.
working with you, Austin.
Yeah, as well,
Keep it
and
positive
it's
and move forward.
it's unfortunate. Like the outcome is unfortunate, but the journey suggests and shows that we're going in the right direction. And people may not see that at face value, but we know that there's a lot of mini wins that we had at the legislature this year. There were, all sorts of things that were happening locally throughout that time, still are happening locally at this time. So, I just encourage everybody, keep your chin up. Nothing really, here's the thing, nothing has changed statewide or federally at this very moment.
Which is as much a good thing as if we, at least we didn't go backwards on nothing, which we very likely could have,
Yeah. And I'm not saying that isn't even a scenario that might rise its head in the next year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But as of this moment, nothing has changed. And even though the status quo is not acceptable or should be acceptable for Texas patients or the Texas public, it's how we have to continue to move things forward. And I'm confident that we're going to move things forward. It's just, we got to keep doing what we're doing.
Absolutely.
We got to keep this thing rocking and rolling. Let's keep getting people active and involved, and you have your pop-up mini events. If you're in Houston, there's a ton of events in Houston. If you're in Austin, there's we have so many friends in Austin that run different things going on throughout Austin. San Antonio is no different. El Paso.
We're going to be talking about upcoming events coming up here in a minute. With
I'm
that
just
being,
saying.
with your whole point there of we got to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to pick up with that point when we get back, but we got to take a quick sponsor break. When we get back, we're going to talk about how now is the time, not later, when we get back from the sponsor break.
For sure.
Howdy, Colt Power here. These days, many people are choosing to add CBD to their wellness routine. Why? Some like CBD for how it may help them with their focus. Others enjoy the way the plant compound may assist them with their sore muscles and relaxation. For me, CBD has been a game changer in keeping my old sports injuries managed so I can work out and be present for my family. If you've ever been curious about CBD, I invite you to check out our Texas-grown, Texas-made products at powerbiofarms.com. That's power, BIOPHARMS.com.
Thrive Apothecary offers an experience truly unique from anything else in Texas. A full-service cannabis solution that is doctor-owned and offers customers every level of cannabis legally available in Texas. From traditional CBD products to emerging hemp-derived THC edibles, smokables, and now medical cannabis. As a licensed medical cannabis provider, prospective patients from anywhere in Texas can book a sponsored online eligibility consultation to determine if they qualify for a medical marijuana prescription from the comfort of their own home. Plus, for Texas veterans, the first prescription appointment is donated by Thrive. Visit thrivetx.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Lonestar Collective podcast, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective, distributed on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and many more, to give Texans information regarding policy, industry, and culture. And now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back to the Lonestar Collective podcast. It is live. It is our session recap for 2023 to 88th legislative session. We're joined by not our entire board.
You keep saying that, man. Yeah, dude, we got some other heavy hitters that aren't here, man.
Absolutely.
We're 2x4. I gotta keep thinking that 2x4.
Well, as we were leaving for the sponsor break, we were talking about how we got to just keep on pushing. We got to keep doing what we're doing, right? And a lot of people think, well, the session's over, so now we can relax, and that's okay for a minute. I mean, everybody here at the collective, I can promise you, is taking the month of June and just going. In fact, Austin kind of told us to, but I mean, outside of that, now is when you start talking to your reps and senators on a local level at their local offices during the interim. Of course, you kind of tied up with special sessions, but that's not going to go on forever, I wouldn't imagine. But in between sessions is when you make good relationships with your representatives and your senators. And it's when they have time to meet you, learn who you are, learn your story, and really, really get to know more about you. I mean, Austin, you can share some examples of your experience with Colt and his representative, Joe Moody, one of our favorites out there in El Paso, and how much more you could probably describe better than I can how much more Colt's experience one-on-one during the interim with his representative created their relationship and basically built it into what it is today. Hit it, Austin.
Yeah, man. Colt is an amazing advocate, and if you don't know who Colt DeMorris is, he's on our board and he runs El Paso Normal and represents the El Paso cannabis scene. Amazing. And now it's New Mexico. Like all of New Mexico, seems to know who Colt is. So shout out to Colt. Much love to him and Representative Joe Moody is amazing. Very thankful for his leadership. And how he's really championed cannabis nonstop, and really, it's not like he's getting any kind of serious political capital gain. He really does care about the criminal justice aspect of it, and so just him leading on it and having the forevision to see how retail cannabis market, and that he is very in close proximity. His district is very close proximity to New Mexico, and to see how that market is thriving and what that could do for Texas. See how Colt has over the years definitely built this relationship that didn't, this wasn't something that Joe Moody did out of nowhere. It was Colt that brought that relationship about. And so, having a good relationship with your representative is very, very important. But I would also add on to that, Colton and his team, and Mike Castro and a lot of the other guys that are doing things, the High Horse team that are doing things in El Paso and the greater El Paso metro area. They're active at city councils, not just in El Paso, but in their surrounding communities, and Las Cruces and Chaparral, and they're very active in these communities. And so you have to be active at the local level for sure. Just 2 days 2 days ago, I was in Denton at Denton City Council.
Yeah.
And so you have to get active in these local communities, in these local battles, because that's where citizen can really make a true impact is locally.
And the thing that about that people don't understand, when you're saying you have to get active, we're not talking about you got to get up and speak. We're not talking about you've got to do anything impressive. You just have to show up and be there in support of the group that's there, because there's typically going to be a group of people in support of whatever action it is at the city council or county level,
Right.
or whether it's even at your rep's office. I mean, it's simple. Being a body, an extra kind of, sort of, if you want to think of it from a motion picture standpoint. Jesse, you got something you want to say?
Well, sometimes it's just showing up and holding a clipboard. So that way people can sign a petition.
Yeah.
Right.
You're to hold a clipboard and
That's
say, "You want to sign the petition."
Yeah.
Or you don't even got to say that. Somebody else will say it. You just got to hold the clipboard.
Yeah.
Just the fact that there's a body there, it means everything. It's that spirit and
Absolutely.
energy, that can't be replaced.
Yeah. And that
So
local activity is what's going to change the minds more in Austin. Because just face it, I mean, we've talked about this countless times. 67% is what all the latest polls the last 3 or 4 years have said. 67% of people in Texas say they are for legalization of an adult use program, right? Well, in Texas, that's over 19 million people. Obviously, 19 million people are not contacting their representatives and the lieutenant governor. And obviously, we're not ever going to get those kind of numbers involved in that level. But if you get simply involved in your local level, the message will get to those people in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's getting there because we've seen that as a result of the local decrim efforts that passed prior to this session. That opened a lot of eyes, I think, didn't it, Austin?
Oh, certainly. 100%. And I think all 4 of us here at some point or another was involved in getting a signature somewhere. You, Jesse, and Lauren were in San Marcos helping the Mano Amiga team for the San Marcos initiative. And me and Gramps were deeply involved in the Denton campaign.
Yeah.
And then we also had a part to play in the Killeen initiative, Killeen and Harker Heights as well. So, yeah, man, those things all pass with flying colors. The battle rages on because now this is kind of an issue that it's very Wild West frontier, because it's a kind of a direct challenge from local to state to federal. It's all kind of a mess. This definitely does go all the way up to the very top of the country, because as we sit today, cannabis is still a Schedule 1 narcotic with no known therapeutic purpose and highly abusive. So, even though and still to this day, I've still not really heard of anybody that is straight overdosed on it. So as far as like overdose death. So anyways, things are hard to change, but you gotta start local.
Well, speaking of those local efforts, we're working on a couple right now, aren't we?
Yeah, I would love to give a shout out to the College Station team and CSTAT Decrim down in College Station. It's being spearheaded by a lot of students, doctoral students who are working at A&M AgriLife, And so I was really fortunate enough to go down and tour the A&M AgriLife Lab and had the opportunity to gain. I never in my life ever imagined I would be trying to get signatures on the steps of Kyle Field, on the university, doing it with like brilliant minds, the minds who were doing like historic, revolutionary research on hemp genetics and biochemistry, and like these guys are like the smartest of all of us when it comes to the plant, and they're the ones that are leading the effort to decriminalize locally. And so I think that is a very, very beautiful story that that has come about, and we certainly support that campaign.
Absolutely.
And we'll continue to support that campaign. We've also teamed up with Freedom Act Lubbock, which is the organization in Lubbock that is spearheading a campaign, and I believe that kickoff is on August 26th.
Yep.
And so if you just go follow Freedom Act Lubbock, you can Google it, you can go find them on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, they're all over the place. And they're definitely spearheading the Lubbock campaign, and we'll definitely be there gaining signatures, speaking, doing drives, because this is, and I think for a lot of people, when they hear College Station in Lubbock, those are very, very deeply conservative areas of Texas. I mean, you can say what you want about Colleen and Denton and San Marcos. I assure you those communities are also conservative, but like Lubbock and College Station, that's like,
ultra conservative.
Yeah, I don't know if you can find a deeper red place.
Yeah.
And if we can find success there, and we can get some numbers that show the general interest, because these campaigns are, I think, pretty solely focused on just this one issue, then that's, I really think, going to raise eyebrows, and continue to compound the state's willingness to want to continue to deal with this, especially considering what's going on with the Attorney General. So I think Ken Paxton would love to like do nothing more than like destroy everybody's parade, right? Like, but nobody knows what that looks like yet, and so pending something happening there, which
didn't recently somebody had apparently reached out, was the lawsuit that's happening from Bell County, that they reached out to the Attorney General's office and they're like, this isn't even a priority for us. We've got so many other things we're dealing with. We're not touching that.
Yeah, they're not concerned with it. Although Denton City Council did mention the judge out of the Bell County case, saying that it was directly unconstitutional and all of this. And so, the local battle continues to rage on. I encourage everybody to follow a lot of these organizations. Like I said, Freedom Act Lubbock, CSTAT Decrim. I know they're on Twitter and Instagram. Definitely follow the big players. Follow us. Follow Texas Normal, Responsible Marijuana Policy. Follow as many organizations as you can to find as much information as you can, because everybody's bringing a different, set of facts to the table, or not. I mean, everybody's bringing facts to the table, but like a different set of like perspective and analysis. And there's some great things that are coming up nationally. We support Marijuana Moment, who is one of the, I would say, the top, reporters on cannabis across the country, and they do a wonderful job following Texas and what's happening here locally and statewide. So like, just follow everybody that you can, and get involved.
Let's talk about events we've got coming up real quick, and then we'll go into our sponsor break and talk about how we work towards the next legislative session itself. So what do we got coming up, Gramps?
Well, we got the Texas Cannabis Roundup coming up on August 17th at the Longhorn Ice House in Dallas. That's going to be a big event. It was a big event last year. I think it's probably going to be twice as big, if not more, this year.
Yeah, it's going to be huge.
There's lots of parking, but if you want to get there, I say get there early.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. There's a lot of collaboration that has gone into this one too. Believe it or not, the Roundup is kind of a metamorphosis of of a project that we tried 2 years ago by having a monthly meeting. That we were still in kind of the throes of COVID, and so that kind of killed that concept at the time, and we just haven't resurrected that part yet. But what we did keep was this one giant gathering that we would do, and Dalton, his crew, they've done a wonderful job. Greenlight Events, Texas Cannabis TV has done a wonderful job of branding this into just, I would say, the most top tier industry social for the entire cannabis space. Whether you're a stakeholder, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a casual consumer, whether you're just interested about getting educated, and you want to mingle with the people that are like deeply involved, deeply entrenched, and you'll meet some very, very high profile people, top lawyers, business stakeholders, doctors. I mean, I'm just saying, you're social media stars. You know, you never know who's going to show up. It's a pretty crazy, unique event for Dallas Fort Worth, and really just for the state of Texas in general. So, because it really is going to comprise a lot of people from the state. So very excited about that.
Yeah. And then of course there's the kickoff that we already talked about, of the petition kickoff for Freedom Act Lubbock. And then our big event that we're working on in October. If anybody was there for the Texas Marijuana March and Freedom Festival at Barnett Park in Fort Worth last October, this year is going to be bigger and better and badder. And like I said, that's going to be October 14th. That's a Saturday. It's not going to be on Texas OU weekend this year,
yes,
like it was last year. So we didn't make that same mistake. But everybody needs to come out, and it's going to be a big time. We're really going to be talking up what we need to be doing. And of course, all that we're going to get into later, but there'll be 35 plus vendors, and just the camaraderie of people with civil disobedience, with the Fort Worth PD right there with us, going down the street to march to the Tarrant County Courthouse. That's the best part of all. So everybody wants to be sure and mark their calendar for October 14th for the Texas Marijuana March and Freedom Festival. That being said, I think we're ready for a sponsor break, Jesse.
Yeah, we're ready for a sponsor break here at the Lonestar Collective podcast. We're going to be right back after our sponsor messages, and we will be talking about working on the upcoming legislative session and how we start getting prepped for that now. We'll be right back.
Howdy, Colt Power here. These days, many people are choosing to add CBD to their wellness routine. Why? Some like CBD for how it may help them with their focus. Others enjoy the way the plant compound may assist them with their sore muscles and relaxation. For me, CBD has been a game changer in keeping my old sports injuries managed so I can work out and be present for my family. If you've ever been curious about CBD, I invite you to check out our Texas-grown, Texas-made products at powerbiofarms.com. That's power, BIOPHARMS.com.
Thrive Apothecary offers an experience truly unique from anything else in Texas. A full-service cannabis solution that is doctor-owned and offers customers every level of cannabis legally available in Texas. From traditional CBD products to emerging hemp-derived THC edibles, smokables, and now medical cannabis. As a licensed medical cannabis provider, prospective patients from anywhere in Texas can book a sponsored online eligibility consultation to determine if they qualify for a medical marijuana prescription from the comfort of their own home. Plus, for Texas veterans, the first prescription appointment is donated by Thrive. Visit thrivetx.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Lonestar Collective podcast, the official podcast of the Texas Cannabis Collective, distributed on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and many more, to give Texans information regarding policy, industry, and culture. And now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back to the Lonestar Collective podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Williams. This week, I'm joined by part of our board. Got it right this time.
Yay.
A select group of our board here this evening to talk about the legislative session, what's been going on, and how we will prepare for the next legislative session.
It's so far away.
It's so far away, but
Can I say something real quick? I'm thinking about what I said earlier, and I feel like I totally misspoke, and I don't want to think people think that I think that it's just us that's getting things done, and I just want to come back and apologize for that. It's not just us that's doing things. It took a lot of us to get nothing done this session. We fought off a lot of really, really bad bills. So
I think when you mean just us, yeah, I think you mean just the small group of people that have been working on this very diligently for a long time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't want.
No, it's okay. We need that frustration. It's okay. We need that. We need that energy. We need that like frustration of like, you know, man, this sucks, and it you know, it's unfortunate. But you know,
there's groups out there that I say they speak softly but carry a big stick.
Yeah.
And those who do know who they are.
Yeah. You know, like I said, I've already told you a lot of groups to follow. You know, Decrim Denton is another one, you know, for the work that they're doing, and the leading effort that's going on in Denton currently. So we support them in the work that they're doing. You know, I showed up and I spoke at I spoke at the rally, I spoke at city council, even had the mayor kind of want to contend with me, and he was kind of like trying to like catch me on something that really wasn't germane to the conversation, but I humored him anyways, hoping that he would continue back and forth. But I also didn't think he knew I was from Denton, because I did tell him we were a Texas nonprofit, and so I think he thought I was some guy from out of state. Like, no, man, I graduated from Denton Ryan High School, Billy Ryan, class of 2001. Spent the majority of my youth in the city of Denton. I'm dedicated to the city of Denton. I love my county, because that's where I spent a lot of my early life. And so just being with, you know, working with teams like Decrim Denton, Ground Game as well, UNT SSDP, Hemp for Victory, Robert Head and his team were there. There's just so many wonderful organizations across the state that are doing some wonderful things, nonprofits, for-profits.
And now is the time to seek them out and get involved.
Yeah, get involved and ask them. And, you know, if there's a smoke shop that you frequent, you know, ask them, you know.
I bet they know somebody.
I bet they guarantee you they know somebody. They follow us, they follow Normal, they follow whoever, you know, and that's an easy way to definitely start getting.
And if they don't, put them in the know.
Yeah,
put them in the know about it.
Yeah, sure.
Well, this is the time, like when we're out of session, right, where we're gonna have some fun events coming up. So this is like kind of the best time to get to know everybody and start networking. And then when you know, a couple Novembers away from now, when bills start getting filed, you're gonna know more about the people that you have formed an alliance with, and can strategize what the best way to go to the Capitol is, and hopefully get more work done.
Well, I think we'll continue to see some changing shifts in politics as well. I mean, Ted Cruz is up against somebody really big coming into the 2024 election, with Colin Allred, who actually unseated Pete Sessions, who was a longtime holder of his district in Dallas. Yeah. And so Colin Allred is I mean, that dude's a serious dude. He's a former NFL linebacker. The dude is from Texas. I think he's a formidable force. He's going to run a different campaign than Beto O'Rourke. And I don't think he's as polarizing a figure to a lot of conservatives. I don't think a lot of conservatives really even know who he is, to be honest with you. So I think that that's going to be a very interesting thing to continue to watch, because I think we all think we all know how we feel about Ted Cruz, whether you love him or you hate him. you either really love that guy or not. So the politics is going to be there, and that's what kind of makes this all muddy. We can't all just, have our festivals and like have a great time and celebrate cannabis and have fun things and, markets and things like that, without all of this dirty work that goes along with it. So it's nothing's going to decriminalize itself. Nothing's going to legalize itself. None of that.
Just to clarify, dirty work is just a term. It's not really dirty, folks. It's pretty simple. It's just showing up. 90% of it is showing up. I mean,
yeah.
When it comes to gathering signatures for a petition, it's being there. When it comes to
this is why local elections are so important as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
City councils.
To city council meetings and stuff, showing up. Just, you can't say it enough. And then, of course, this is also the time in this particular, when session ends between now and the election cycle, it's the upcoming election cycle, where these reps and senators will decide whether they're running again, or maybe it's going to be a new candidate. Maybe there aren't any new candidates figured yet. That now's the time to start courting people who might be candidates. And if not, if it's pretty much like my district, we know if my representative is going to run, he's pretty much going to get it, so I want to be in his back pocket, right? I want to be talking to him. I want to be communicating with him during this session, or during the time between the sessions. I'm sorry, because when those bills are getting filed, like Lauren pointed out earlier, in November, I want to be ready. So I can say, hey, I like this one. I don't like this one. Right off the get-go. There's no reason why we have to wait until the session starts to communicate with our representatives and senators. That's
as well.
Very, very important thing to think about.
As well, we need to pay attention to the Senate in Texas this upcoming election, because the Senate on the odd year after a decade does a lottery system to pick who will be running again in the next election, because everybody was up the last election. So we have a system that determines who's going to have their off time for election and who won't. So we've got to pay close attention to which senators are going to be up for re-election again.
Yeah, and I think we're not ever, I don't believe we've ever like fully endorsed a candidate. We've never that we don't endorse candidates. But if they're talking about cannabis, whether it's good or bad, we will cover it, and we will find out what they're saying and what their position is and make it known to the public, for sure. Whether it's good or bad. We have some wonderful representatives that we got to talk to and have close relationships. Big shout out to Rep Place's office for really giving us a warm welcome and a warm home throughout the legislative session. She's a very strong advocate. Has been on the Lonestar Collective podcast before, and so we have a lot of representatives that we really love. Who else should we give some love to at the ledge? Who else?
Of course, Representative Moody, Representative Rosenthal, Tellerico. I mean, who else can I name off? There's several. You would be surprised. One. Yeah, Collier. I can't think of her name. It's a female one. Zwiener.
Zwiener as well. And I will also commend Representative Stephanie Click, because she really did fight for her legislation for 1805, and I think that she did her best to get what she knew was something that would be on the table. And so I would like to give my kudos and salute to Representative Click for working as hard as she could within the framework of what she had. And even that wasn't enough for me. So, we just, just kind of swing back on what we led off with. The legislative session kind of killed the way it played out, kind of killed everything, not just cannabis, but like a lot of other good legislation
Absolutely.
that could benefit the state of Texas, or hurt the state of Texas, to be honest with you. So,
I mean, teachers didn't get any raises. There's a lot of things that didn't happen.
yeah, we just have to continue to take these small wins, learn the lessons that we learned from this session. I think we definitely have to keep being loud, and putting this on the scene, because when people show up to these committee hearings, and they get a lot of attention and they get high profile enough, there's pressure there to act on that legislation, and to get more attention on it. So I think that building support for have just, again, being there and being a person who supports. You don't have to speak, but definitely your presence is going to be invaluable.
Absolutely.
So,
And if you can, when we do things like direct actions and whatnot, Lauren, you hadn't had much time to talk, so tell everybody how much fun it is when we go up there and pass out stuff to every office and at the Capitol.
I honestly do enjoy it. The parking is the worst part about it, but you have to get there at a certain time.
Yeah, it's Austin, Texas, man.
But no, I mean, it's kind of thrilling to breathe and to march through these halls and just know that you are trying to better your community and you are being about as active as you can get at that point. And I, by no means am I a heavy hitter or taking meetings with anybody, but I am making connections with offices. And I guess that's part of why maybe I'm so bitter, is trying to reconcile it in my head of like, but why didn't it get done? I really feel like, we were making connections and everybody was comfortable with it.
Having all those meetings.
Yeah, and I tend to overthink things. So I'm like, oh, were you just patting me on my head and sending me on my way, or did you really fight as hard as you could? Like, I don't know those inner workings in the back offices, but yeah, I mean, I really enjoy it. It's a good way to get your steps in for the day, and just being a part of your community at the deepest level, outside of locally. And listen, like, I have not talked to my new sheriff in my town. That's my next step, is to take it local in my very small, under 10,000 people town. That makes me a little nervous, but that's my next step. I've been pushing myself this year to do more. And Austin, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak out in Lubbock and down in San Antonio with Santa Cana. And, I'm so passionate about it. So I just keep getting deeper and deeper into it. And I as much as it frustrates me, I absolutely love it. And I think I've got a deep, deep passion for it. That's why I keep coming back. I keep coming back because I believe in it. I really do. I believe in the whole process of it.
There's a lot of people that do. And we just got to keep everybody keep their chin up, keep marching forward. We got to leave on the high note, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
We did have victories at the legislative session, particularly killing some bad legislation. Also, we had a historic legalization bill by Joe Moody, HB 3652, that got a committee hearing, and so and that was historic. Chris, you were there for that, and that was a historic time. We were there to really show support, and that was an amazing thing, because it forced the Legislative Budget Board to create a document that forecasted, what a retail cannabis market would look like, and this included up to 12 plants for home grow, which is like that's a lot. Considering
no doubt.
Well, that's a lot, man. And so that and you know, the numbers that came out of that, which is a document I think that we should really be flaunting for the next year and a half in front of everybody, that over a 5-year period, we're
Yeah.
we're losing hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenues for general fund, for local municipality projects, for teacher retirement, for you know,
Mental
state
health.
services, you name it. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty detailed. And so
Yeah.
you know, and of course we, you know, the hemp market that exists under HB 1325 is still, I think, unscathed. And
Mhm.
so I think
That's a good
everybody's
thing.
kind of waiting to see what happens with, you know, the federal government, with the DEA, things like that.
Yeah.
But for right now, things have not changed, and we just move forward, guys. That's all we can do.
So I wanted
Can,
to.
Yeah.
can I ask real quick, what is the next step with, you know, decrim Denton now that the city council has shut it down? I mean, are there people talking about bringing lawsuits against the city, or do we just again? Like, what?
So as far as I know, Decrim didn't, obviously locally, is going to continue to put pressure on city council members to make this a big deal. City council was not particularly thrilled. They are not thrilled, especially the mayor is not thrilled that this is something that they are continually having to deal with. Like, they want to deal with like real city problems. They don't want to deal with a bunch of dumb stoners who, you know, are this, you know, dealing with this,
How
you
thrilled will
know.
they be when they're out of a job of those positions? I
Right.
wonder.
Well, they've already had, you know,
We've already had one
I don't think they
replaced.
truly, I'm not speaking for them like that way. I don't think they truly believe that. I just, you know, that's kind of the perception, is that, you know, hey, you guys got your moral victory, but we literally, we can't enforce it because it violates state law. But then at the same time, it's like, well, if all of these police officers and these police associations, they're sworn to uphold the law, then they need to uphold the law of HB 1325, which has been law for 4 years, and that effectively eliminates using smell as probable cause, because nobody can tell the difference between, you know, all the different derivatives of cannabis flower that exist,
Nope.
whether it's CBD, CBG, THCA, DA, or what we would call traditional Delta 9 marijuana flower, right? Like, there's no human or dog in existence that can just detect that by smell alone. And the testing required for that, like, we want to complain about fentanyl being a big problem. Do you want to continue to like test for marijuana? Really? Like, we're going to test for marijuana when we have all of these fentanyl issues going on? So it's like very, very impractical.
Yeah.
And so enforcing HB 1325, and I think we need some help from Department of Agriculture and state health services in really working with local law enforcement, so they really understand what cannabis is, what marijuana is, what hemp is, what THC is, what all of these terms are, because didn't police and the police association representation there did a very poor job of showing that they understand the plant by any stretch of the imagination.
They
I
don't
think
have.
one police officer said, "Well, I don't, you know, I'm not well versed on that hemp law, but it sure smells a whole lot like marijuana to me." And like, I'm like, okay, so that's that's
Exactly
your
the point.
argument, like.
Exactly. That's exactly the point.
Right. So important, when we talk about law enforcement enforcing the law, what we mean is law enforcement needs to uphold the law of HB 1325, which it's been law for 4 years. How after 4 years does even a municipality the size of Denton not understand what
Because they
is in
haven't
that
tried
law?
to. Because they haven't tried to.
There's been so
You know.
much misinformation put out for so many decades that there's somehow this magical difference between the two. I literally ran into a retired officer last week who honestly thought that hemp was a completely different plant altogether, that it was somehow separate from marijuana. And I had to
Yeah.
explain, I was like, nope, it is the same exact plant. There's just been an arbitrary chemical line drawn in the sand and that's what they separate it by.
And they don't understand the collateral consequences of, so because for decades and decades and decades, hemp and marijuana were the same thing, the same exact thing. And 4 years ago, under the 2018 Farm Bill, and kind of technically under the 2014 Farm Bill, but the 2018 Farm Bill for sure, and then HB 1325 under the Texas legislature in 2019 defined marijuana and hemp as any plant or product in greater concentration of 0.3% delta 9 THC by dry weight. That's marijuana. And anything under that, in any isomer, salt, derivative, naturally occurring substance, anything else about the plant is hemp. And I don't think anybody really grasped what that meant and how that would play out. And all I can tell you is that the market is moving way faster than the regulations. And the state didn't really do itself a lot of favors by not addressing anything, whether it was medical, whether it was penalty reduction, whether it was expanding the hemp, hemp farmers, or repealing the smokable hemp ban, or manufacturing ban, you name it. Like just nothing got done. So the state really did a disservice by not helping local law enforcement and local municipalities understand exactly what this law is and why really arrests for marijuana in general, and why using smell of cannabis as probable cause should now be considered unconstitutional and violating your Fourth Amendment right. Especially if it's a legal product, because we hear all the time of people who need lawyers because they got arrested for a Delta 8 vape cartridge, or
we just got told about another raid the other day.
Yeah, in the RGV, right?
Yep.
So
another raid on a legit operator.
Right, and we're familiar with what happened with the guys that happened, the Hobbs and Sky guys in Navarro County, and how Navarro County Sheriff's Department handled that mess. So there's just because we've separated what hemp and marijuana are from a policy standpoint, there's collateral consequences for merging the two for almost 100 years and not really backing it up with any funding or education, so that it can be executed in a proper manner. And that's why you have a lot of unregulated, nefarious, foul characters that are penetrating the hemp space and giving legit operators a bad name. And so these are things that could have been fixed in 2021, 2023, hopefully 2025.
That's what we got to work on, folks. That's what we got to work on.
I wanted to clarify. I found it from earlier what I was talking about. I want to make sure I give out the right information on this. That the senators are divided into two groups based on the intervening census. In election years ending in 2, all 31 seats are up for election, which is what we just saw in the last election. Once the Senate meets in session after said election, the senators participate in a drawing to determine their election cycle. One half will have a 2-4-4 cycle, whereupon the seat would stand for election in 2 years, the year ending in 4, followed by a 2 4-year cycles, the years ending in 8 and 2. The other half have a 4-4-2 cycle, whereupon the seat stands for election for 4 years, for a year ending in 6, followed by another 4-year cycle, the year ending in 0. But then the seat would stand for election in only 2 years for the year ending in 2.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some.
So we're waiting to hear that drawing result, and we will know which senators
are
will
up
be
for election.
Up for election.
Moral of the story is, we'll in 2024, there's going to be some senators that are going to go down.
Work on.
See, we'll get some answers, because we're going to stay on top of this topic. We're going to keep it ever present. We're going to keep literally marching forward. Real quick before we go, I want to drop one other event, and it's not totally public yet, but I'm going to make it a little public. We're collabing with Mary J. on, I believe it's July 29th, Saturday, July 29th, for an 80s dance party that's going to benefit cancer patients. All proceeds are going to go to taking care of medical costs for, I think, 3 or 4 different Texas local cancer patients.
Specific patients.
Specific patients. Actually going to go to the patient, not to some organization that was going to give them, cents on the dollar. So, that's something that's coming down. We're going to drop that news hopefully this upcoming week, and y'all just keep following along. We appreciate everybody. We love all of the camaraderie that exists within the cannabis space. We appreciate all of our allies out there. They know who they are, who continue to work with us, and or bring us into the fold to help them assist in efforts. So I'm just, we're thankful that we have a spotlight that we're able to build off of, and we're just going to keep building and growing. And, we're not going to give up, Texas. We're never going to give up.
No,
that's not the
absolutely not.
Texas spirit. Like if you're going to give up when it's hard like that, that's not the Texas spirit. You're not going to be long for this state, y'all. It gets hot here.
Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. And join us each week. We always have a good guest.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for our live legislative session recap here at the Lonestar Collective podcast. We appreciate you joining us. If you joined us live, you can also, if you missed parts of it, go back and rewatch it on Facebook. It should be on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, all of those. They went live out to all 4 of those. You can go rewatch it there. If you missed anything, gathering information you may have missed during that time, such as our upcoming events, how we plan on working for the next session, how our senators are picked, blah, blah, blah. Go check it out. TexasCannabico.com is our website. We appreciate your time. Y'all have a great evening.
Peace.
What are you doing?